Yo, what is up, my fellow virgin boy? Aiden Lake Six Sauce can never take a motherfucking loss. Today, we ready, brother. Today, we react to the fight minutes as always and shit like that. Today, brother, react to when losing feel like winning. That's some real shit, but who knows, bro? I'm probably thinking, why you like sound like you whispering, B? You just gotta, you mean? I don't feel like screaming right now.
25 minutes with the baddest man in the division. When everyone was afraid to step up and step in, I did. And I showed the world that boogeyman, that people that they think's the scariest man in the division, he's human.
But you still lost, my nigga.
MMA, victory is often the ultimate measure of success. If you win, you're the GOAT. If you lose, you were never really that good, you know? The winner is hailed and celebrated while the loser is mocked and memed on until they get backed in there and get a victory to erase the mark of shame and defeat. That's how it goes. Winning is everything. Losing is the end. Well, for the most part. There are rare moments when a fighter's stock rises even in defeat, sometimes even higher than the winners. These are the moments where a gutsy performance, a near upset, or sheer resilience in the face of stupid odds leaves a mark on fans and fighters alike.
Life is good.
That's a fact.
I have more to be grateful for than to complain about, for sure.
Sometimes it's the short notice replacement who shocks the world by pushing a heavily favored opponent to their limits. Other times it's an underdog who lands a single, unforgettable moment that overshadows the final scorecards. And then there are the rare few who go toe-to-toe with a seemingly invincible juggernaut, not to claim victory, but to prove that even monsters bleed. They don't get their hands raised, but they are told to keep their heads up, because that's not a loss. That's a badge of honor and glory.
When a Christmas spirit is
The fighting business, absolutely amazing. One of my favorite new channels going right now.
look for the light.
This happens in our sport, especially nowadays. I've noticed. A match is scheduled and one of the fighters withdraw and the company scrambles to find a replacement. In the event they can't find anyone in the company to get in there, the UFC will look for outsiders to fill in, and a lot of them are willing to accept the fight and potentially get a contract with the top MMA
You see that? You mean? That's it.
promotion.
They should tune in because I'm the most exciting fighter this roster's gonna have on the card. I'm coming to bring a war the entire time.
Unfortunately, they come in short notice against a UFC caliber fighter and get wrecked, never to be seen again. But there are some exceptional newcomers who step in on short notice and impress the brass and the fans, like current featherweight contender Diego Lopez.
Well, if no one's to fight him, here I am.
Just last year, the UFC picked a guy off the regional circuit to face undefeated then and still undefeated now Movsar Evloev on 5 days notice. I have no idea how he made weight in that time frame, but he did and went right at the undefeated Russian from the opening bell. On defeats, Evloev was caught more than a few times and he had to fight off a number of dangerous submissions on the ground. He eventually took over with his wrestling and won a decision, as a minus 1,000 favorite should have, but he fought Lopez for 15 minutes and was only able to take a deep breath after the final bell had rung. It was this short notice fight that secured Lopez a place in the promotion, and he kinda saved Evloev's ass there. I have another example like this one, but a lot more commendable. Replace 5 days with 2. UFC 200 was supposed to be the MMA event, and it was said to be headlined by Jon Jones versus Daniel Cormier 2, which was an appropriate main event with 2 of the best pound-for-pound fighters in the world. But then Jon Jones pulled a Jon Jones's Deluxe.
U.S. Anti-Doping Agency has informed Jon Jones of a potential anti-doping policy violation. Because Jones was scheduled to compete against Daniel Cormier this coming Saturday, there is insufficient time for a full review before the scheduled bout, and therefore the fight has been removed from the fight card.
2 days before the historic pay-per-view, Jones was removed from the card because of a failed drug test, and all hell broke loose. Losing a main event of a pay-per-view is terrible enough, but this was UFC 200. Cormier badly wanted to remain, and the UFC desperately tried to arrange a replacement bout, but who on earth was going to agree to face Cormier on non-existent notice? Only a true GOAT. Anderson Silva, former middleweight champion who recently had gallbladder surgery, saved the event and faced Cormier in a non-title fight at 205. Now, even in his prime, Cormier would have been a nightmare matchup for Silva, and in 2016, the Spider was far past his best days. Cormier wisely chose to wrestle and was booed out of the building, while Silva, who had saved the event, was hailed as a hero even after a lopsided 30-26 unanimous decision. That was no loss, but another feather in the cap for the
It was just
middleweight
real
greats,
nigga shit,
who,
because
by the way,
everybody know Cormier just gonna Come here. Come here. Come here. Man.
They hurt Cormier in the last few seconds with a body kick. Most people don't remember the highlight because it came to an end just like that. They do remember this one though. This wasn't short notice, so that breaks the trend, but this was still a massive mismatch on paper. Leon Edwards was on an 8-fight win streak, but still barely relevant in the welterweight division.
We've got a welterweight there in Leon Edwards, maybe, that you could have a little bit of a fight with.
Who's that?
Leon Edwards?
Never heard of him.
Before he could challenge Usman, he needed one signature victory, preferably against a...
Yo, Kobe really just got his ass whooped on Saturday, and he lost in the casino. He just been a bad week for him.
Heard of him.
Before he could challenge Usman, he needed one signature victory, preferably against a popular name, and by some miracle, the UFC managed to get Nate Diaz to agree to this fight. Leon Edwards was barely relevant at welterweight, and Nate Diaz was barely active in MMA. He was last seen over a year ago at UFC 244, where he fought Masvidal for the BMF title, but even with a long time away, his star power hadn't lessened at all. Leon Edwards barely got a reaction on stage, while Nate Diaz, a massive underdog who was never really a true welterweight, was cheered like the people's champion he was, and everyone was hoping that somehow Nate Diaz would pull off a miracle, get the W, and fight Usman for the title. Laughable on paper, right? Well, in reality, outmatched, outskilled, bloodied, and having lost 24 minutes of 25, Nate Diaz struck with his signature 1-2 combo, and Edwards was out on his feet. Unlike Silva Cormier, there was still a minute left to go, but instead of immediately going in for the kill, Nate opted for emotional damage and clowned the future welterweight champion. Who looks like the winner here? That one moment completely undid the prior 24 minutes, and that's what most people remember from the fight. Hell, from the entire event itself. Still, that was one moment that ruined what little hype Edwards had at the time. Lucky punch, maybe, but there's nothing lucky about the next one. After moving from 185 to 205, Alex Pereira, who was already a scary motherfucker, quickly built a reputation as the boogeyman of light heavyweight. His first fight against Jan was close, but since that one, he knocked out Yeri in 2 rounds, ruined Hill's career and life in less than 1 round, and absolutely demolished Yeri again.
You've become familiar with the sport. You've seen a lot of characters come through it. What do you see when you watch Alex Pereira fight?
I see something very special, which all of you see. That doesn't make me different. I see somebody who's got the complete package. For me, in my world, the complete package means mentally and physically and technically.
That second knockout debut against Yeri made it pretty clear there was no striker at light heavyweight or otherwise who would be a match for Poatan. To survive, you had to take him down and hold him down, so when the UFC announced Khalil Rountree, another striker as his opponent for UFC 307, most of the MMA community scoffed.
We saw that Pereira's fighting Khalil Rountree. That got announced yesterday. What are your thoughts on that fight?
Okay, it's a fight. I really don't understand the chance for a Rountree.
This was a foregone conclusion. Poatan with a left-hand KO in the first round. Not to flatter my ego or anything, but I was one of the few who pointed out the obvious danger that was Khalil Rountree, and he absolutely rose to the occasion. First round was competitive, with Khalil not just surviving, but contending with a former Glory double champion. And in the second round, he found a right hand that rocked Pereira and knocked him down for the first time at 205. Out of all the strikers at 205, Jan, Yeri, and Hill, Khalil was the one to challenge the once invincible kickboxer. Pereira came back stronger in the third round and found his rhythm in the fourth, where he unleashed upon the challenger, but even when he was getting viciously battered by those left hooks from Hill, Khalil endured until his face was mangled and his consciousness shattered. Alex Pereira stood victorious once again, but Khalil Rountree had earned something as well.
Khalil Rountree, another level of tough. You can never measure heart. You don't know how that's going to go. Now you know.
His gutsy performance solidified his place as one of the most dangerous and game fighters in the division, and he showed the MMA world that even the most fierce fighters can be pushed to their limits, even this guy. In a division full of elite strikers trying to compete with Pereira striking, Khalil Rountree was the one who stood toe-to-toe with the boogeyman, and for a fleeting moment, he made him look human. Okay, so far we have gone over short notice replacements, shockers none of us saw coming, a boogeyman being rendered human. I think I have the perfect example to end this on, and it happened just the other day. Short notice, check. Up against the terror of the division, check. Rising to the occasion and above. You might dislike him, but check. Ian Gary, dislike him or hate him or love him or can't stand him, always ran his mouth that he was going to fight everyone in the division, Shavkat Rakhmonov included, and when the UFC knocked on his door, Ian Garry actually kept his word and accepted a 2-week notice contender fight against the undefeated and undisputed boogeyman of welterweights.
So I answered the phone. I said, "What's up, Lloyd?" He goes, "Hey, Ian, how are you?" He goes, "Joaquin's not out." He's like, "But they do want you to step in December 7th. I said, "Let's do it. Let's not beat around the bush. Let's go get it. Let's go shock the world. Go out there and beat a guy that's never been beaten. Prove to the world how good I am against the scariest man in the division."
Usman declined the fights. I'm sure Colby did too. The UFC reached out to a couple of welterweights, but not a single one accepted the offer to fight Shavkat. Who would really? With a 100% finishing rate and a deadly combo of vicious striking and grappling, Shavkat was the last guy you wanted to face at 170, especially on short notice. Accepting the fight in the first place was a ballsy move, and many chalked it up to Ian Garry's infamous brashness or just plain recklessness that was about to be corrected. But when the octagon door shut, it became clear that Garry wasn't there just to survive. He was there to prove something. From the opening bell, Shavkat Rakhmonov came forward like the predator he was known to be, pressuring Garry with a strike in, and once he clinched early in the round, that was supposed to be it. For most welterweights, once Shavkat gets the clinch, the end begins, but Garry surprised everyone by holding his ground. By the third round, Garry
literally holding him.
Had not only survived and fought off Shavkat, but had also started to find his rhythm, finding Shavkat with precise jabs and kicks that visibly slowed the Kazakh down. Then came the fifth round, the round that shattered the myth. Ian Garry got Shavkat's back in a scramble and locked in a rear naked choke. I swear for a moment, every MMA fan became an Ian Garry supporter, because in that moment, it did look like the impossible was about to happen.
Yeah, you can hold your arms up.
Until Shavkat just barely survived the submission. When the final bell rang, the judges awarded a close decision to Shavkat, but the damage to his aura had already been done. Ian Garry had pushed the undefeated boogeyman to the brink, nearly finishing him and proving that he belonged among the elite, neutralized and punished, taken to the decision for the first time in his career, and nearly finished by a rear naked choke by a striker. I'm sure every welterweight slept peacefully that night, knowing that Shavkat, who once seemed invincible, was human. And it was Ian Garry, public enemy number one, who brought the human out of the undefeated Terminator.
Do not feel like I lost today. My hand might not have got raised, but I came out and I fought a giant. I came out and I fought the boogeyman, and I showed that he's fucking human.
These moments remind us why winning isn't everything. The fighters who steps up on short notice, the underdog who creates a spark of chaos, and the supposed victim who punches the unstoppable force in the face. These moments, always unforeseen, personify the sport and turns even the most forgettable and hated fighters into fan favorites of the night. In a sport where victory is king, these examples show us that victory isn't always measured by getting your hand raised.
This is why we
There's a
love
rare kind of
UFC,
glory
my
in
nigga.
losing the right way, and that kind of glory is unforgettable. If you're trying to get access to the music playlist for this,
Not trying to get access, my nigga, but I hope y'all niggas enjoy this shit. I probably thinking, what the fuck I got the shades on? Cause I'm high as shit watching these, you know. But everybody like, subscribe, and enjoy your shit. Yeah, man.